Welcome to the most must-see fantasy football podcast in existence, the Huddle House. It's me, Ty, and this week we got the one and only Brandon in the league, a man who's been making some big moves this season. So we have a lot to talk about. Definitely a big day for the league, and let's dive into it. How you guys feeling?
Good. I've been looking forward to recording this all day long. Like you said, some blockbusters happened today. One of which concerned both of you, all of which concerned people in this call right now. So, should be a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Brandon, how about you, man? How's your day been?
No, since the trade, it's definitely a lot better.
Mhm.
Checking my schedule for the rest of the season and seeing that high number, hell yeah.
Dude, you were a tough freaking cookie to crack in that trade, man. I had to put my work in. Like it was a hefty task getting CD out off of you, but I told you, man, I'm persistent. I wasn't gonna leave you alone until CD was on my roster. So
Yeah, it was
eventually,
good like 2 weeks of you hitting me up for CD.
yeah, dude, it's been a minute. I've just been like, what can I do? What can I do to make it happen? What can I throw in? Like I wanted them so bad. So I'm glad we can finally get it done.
Yeah. So I think uh, we can just kind of start it off there. Let's talk about your all's deal since you're both in here right now and you just kind of set the table for it. So, who initiated this deal and how did it kind of come together? Let's start
Um,
with Brandon. Let's start with Brandon's perspective.
yeah, Brandon can share his side.
Well, Matt came up and trying to get CD and way like week 1 of the season wanted JK.
Oh
So
yeah, I wanted
even,
JK early. Yeah.
yeah, but I pretty much shut down the JK thing real early on in the season. Then he was kept talking about getting CD for Stephon, and I was really resistant against it. I hate the Cowboys. So having Lamb on my team like made me actually root for him a little bit, which was nice. And it was just balling out, but he came up with the trade to give me Mixon. And I was like, with my record and the rest of the season, like I could actually push for the trophy.
Hmm.
So I said, screw it. And we worked it out and got it done.
Yeah, I think it was a really good trade for both sides. And I think it definitely you're in that win now period. And I know that might not have been a common consensus among people after the draft because you went very young and you went injured running backs and quarterback first round. Um, I think maybe just the backstory of how we got here on draft night, your strategy. Did you go in with the specific mindset to attack young receiver first and then take those value picks of running backs as it goes down? Was it your plan to ignore that altogether, or did it just kind of happen that way? Because you went, I'm looking at it now. Josh Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, and then T. Higgins. And then you took Dobbins, who was out for the whole season at that point. So what was your thinking on draft night? I'm very curious.
Well, originally I went in just thinking I'm going to get like a top tier player. So after like all the running backs were off the board, I was like, I can just lock down a quarterback, secure that for a couple seasons. And I was like, by the second round, there was no running backs I really wanted. So I just started hammering out receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Took a chance on Jamar, and that's paid off very nicely.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely paid off. You weren't scared away by the preseason drop talk that everybody went on about.
I mean, I was a little scared, but I figured if it hit, it'd definitely be worth it getting them in the third round, I think it was.
Third round, yeah.
Yeah. So it's worst case, it would have been a bust, which would have sucked, but he hasn't let me down.
Wow. I got you. Okay, cool. And then with the injured running backs, Dobbins and ETN as your first two running backs who were both out for the season. What was your thinking there? Was that just like, wow, this is really good value, or was it what was it in your mind?
It was more of eventually I'll need running backs. So I figured just take two young, good running backs that can be played next year because a lot of people weren't going to shoot for them since they
Yeah.
were on IR.
So you were playing with the future. You were drafting with the future in mind.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I think that was the way that like a lot of people felt your team was built. I mean, I don't remember exactly when we did like the preseason power ranking things with Sam where he put you, but I know just seeing all that youth on your team, it probably wasn't like the highest spot just because you don't usually think of a successful recipe coming from not drafting running backs and drafting ones who are out for the whole season. But I think it's proven a lot of things that this is a way to win. So I'm just excited to watch the team. I think it's arriving early, kind of just like that's what happens when you have that Jamar Chase hit. So
I think you just like watching Brandon's team because it's got like 4 Bengals on it.
yeah, when I'm cheering for my team, I'm cheering for you essentially, Brandon, especially now at this point with Mixon. So yeah, I'm a big fan of your team simply for that.
Man, I'll take it. This bye coming up is going to be rough though. We'll see how that goes.
I think they got Jets this week, which should be a fruitful game for you, and then Browns, and then they're on bye. So yeah, hopefully I play you that week. That would be nice. If I play you that week, I don't have to. I can just not worry about my own players scoring against me, my own favorites. But we'll see, man. Cool. So I know I was very curious about your thought process during the draft. I'm sure a lot of other people were. Great to get that insight from you. But Matt, what about you, man? Talk us through this trade now and where you feel your team's at after having done this, because it's very clear what it does for Brandon. It puts him in a great position to push for that trophy, like he said. But what about for your team?
Yeah, so I actually came up with the idea about a week or two ago, but my plan was actually to hit Brandon up closer to playoff time so that I could kind of keep milking Mixon as much as I can for the rest of the season, try to get wins. Like I was still clearly like invested in this season and stuff like that. And I was like, maybe if Brandon's, in a, really contending spot late in the season, then we can make it. And he'd probably feel even better about it, knowing where his playoff spot potentially could be and stuff like that. But I was talking to Marcus about it yesterday before I even talked to Brandon about all this. And he kind of brought up the point that like, yes, Brandon's team is really good and it definitely could win, and be a 1 or 2 seed. But like, there's also always that risk that he starts struggling. And if that happens, then he might not want Mixon as bad because he might be like, oh, if I'm not contending this year, then I'll just wait it out for next year and get Dobbins back. And, it kind of like removed the need for Mixon. So he was like, you might actually want to hit while he's at like an all-time high so that you can kind of have some leverage of like, hey man, you're going to be a top team. Like you need Mixon like right now. So like, I kind of used that knowledge that he was going to have Singletary probably as his RB1 after Montgomery and CEH came back. And I was like, this actually might be the time to strike because like I said, he's making a real push right now. And so, I definitely went into it knowing it would help him a lot if he could get that Allen Diggs stack that I know he wanted. Yeah. And then also get a win now running back. But in my mind, my season was pretty much over. I was 1-6, like not good. It's been a rough season. And I'm like, so if I'm not really contending this year anyway, then I don't really mind just waiting it out, getting Dobbins as my RB2 whenever he is back. And as much as I love Diggs is great. I needed to kind of pick an identity with my team. Like I had a lot of young guys like the Waddles, the Batemans, the Moonies, the Jonathan Taylors. But then I had a few guys that were like 28, 29 in there that just kind of like, they didn't really fit the timeline. And so I wanted to get a young stud receiver to kind of be like the centerpiece of my offense for like the next decade. So that was really why, the 3 guys I have in that conversation are Lamb, Chase, and Jefferson. And Marcus is never trading Jefferson. And I know Brandon's never trading Chase. So like, I was like, I'm going to get number 3. I'm going to try to get the other young dynasty studs. So I think I had to just sort of sacrifice this year, throw in the towel and get the guys I wanted for the future. So I was also glad to get back in the first round because I was feeling some FOMO of missing out on the rookie draft, knowing I wasn't going to have really anything going on in it. So It's nice to have a pick back.
You've been swapping those picks like it's baseball cards, man. So
yeah,
I'm sure I would say I'm glad you're back in it, but I wouldn't put it past you to find a way to flip this thing somehow. Give you.
Anything's open to flip if I get the right value. Like, obviously I can handle the FOMO if I get a great player on my team, but yeah, it's not like the first rounder's untouchable, but I'm most likely going to keep it.
Yeah, well, I think it was a rare instance today, and like that trade came through, and everybody was like, "Oh, this is really good for both teams. Like it fits the timeline of both teams, and it benefits them." So I don't feel like we've seen that much. And it feels like a lot of times people are very divided. So thought that was cool today, and I enjoyed the fallout of it and the reactions to it. So
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty encouraging response. I know I got a few guys saying like, I know you gave up a lot, but I think that's a good trade for you. So it's nice to kind of see that some other guys thought it was smart. But I know the chat also loved the deal for Brandon too. So I think it was a true win-win. Like I definitely think Brandon got his pieces for the next couple of years, and I think I got an incredible young core now. So I'm excited about it.
yeah, well, good stuff, boys. I would agree.
Let's pivot, man. I know you're not going to bring up your own trade, Ty, but
Sure.
let's get into it. I know you're not going to toot your own horn, but what was your thought process? I talked to Carter actually a little earlier today, and he was kind of walking me through the deal on his end. And I mean, it's not my really business to tell him what he should or shouldn't offer, but I was just kind of like, I think it's a pretty reasonable deal. At that point, though, Rondale wasn't involved in the trade, so I thought the deal was actually just going to be Tony and Adams. So just kind of walk me through how you got Rondale in there and kind of how the negotiations went.
Well, it kind of all started last week. I'm sitting there, I'm 3-3, and I have Russell Wilson who's injured. He missed that week, and I knew he was going to be out for another 3 weeks, it seemed like. So I was looking at my schedule coming up. I thought I had some winnable matchups on the horizon, and I just thought, like, I can't sit here and just bank on Taylor Heineke to get me 3 wins. Like, I need to make a move because I feel like this is a turning point for my season. I think I'd been competitive in games, only getting like 9 points from my quarterback back-to-back weeks, like only lost by a few. So I was like, it's worth trying to do. So that's when I ended up pursuing that Rodgers trade and working that out with Chris, where I sent Wilson and Wentz for Rodgers and a future first. And then as soon as I did that, I'm like, I'm swimming in first round picks. Like I had 2 this year, I have 2 for next year. So immediately I was trying to flip 2 firsts and Michael Pittman for like tons of stud receivers. Like I think I hit up everybody in the league. I went after Devontae. I probably went after Chase or like somebody on your. I'm sure I did, Brandon. I go after him like once a week, and I know I'm going to say no. It's just like I'm like the little dog, like trying to run up and chase the school bus. Like I'm never going to catch it, but I'm always going to try. I think I went for Terry McLaurin, like Calvin Ridley, tons of stud receivers. I was going for like an alpha, and I was trying to just flip that right away. Really hit up Jeremy, AJ Brown. I really was trying for him. Nothing came through with it, so I just kind of sat on it, and but it was still on my mind to do. And I had kind of just given up on it because Carter said he wasn't interested in that deal for Adams, and I was like, it'd be sweet to stack them. It was still on my mind, and then he just threw him up on the trade block earlier this morning, and I was like, God, don't tell me there's a chance. Like, I got to at least check it out. So, he really wasn't going to do the deal unless I included Deontay Johnson and Pittman, and I was really trying not to do that because I value both those guys pretty highly. I think Pittman's like he's only a second-year guy, and he's really broken out the last few weeks. And Deontay is just a machine. Like he gets 10 targets a game. He's going to have like 9 catches, and may not be the most yards, but he's very productive in PPR. I guess half-point PPR in this instance. So I really wasn't wanting to part with them. I knew I'd have to give up like a first round pick with it too and some other capital. And I couldn't do it straight up for just Devontae, giving up like my whole wide receiver core at that point. And so he came back and the deal kind of died. And then he came back and said he'd throw in Kadarius. And I was interested in it again. And it was at that point, it was like Deontay, Pittman, and a first for Devontae and Kadarius, and I said, well, I'll throw in, or I asked him first, like, can I get Rondale in there too? And he said, I can't do that. And then I said, like, well, I'll throw in a second, and then we got it done. I think he really wanted to get this trade done too, because it does give him a lot of depth. Like his receiver core was already really good, and those are 2 pretty good players that'll help like balance it out. I know that Devontae might be the best receiver in football, but he's out this week probably. He has a bye week coming up. So, I mean, I feel like I gave up a lot. Like, a lot of people in the chat were acting like it was I killed him or something like that. I definitely didn't feel like that. I was I was fighting to accept it because I guess I just had some attachment because I drafted those guys and I really like them, but it wasn't the easiest thing to accept. And I didn't necessarily agree that he got robbed at all. I feel like he got some pretty good compensation. I do feel fortunate to have gotten the 2 rookies with it because I think one of those guys is bound to hit, and I have pretty good faith in Rondo Moore. He's looked pretty electric. So I think that it gives me a stud wide receiver who is going to be awesome with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you're talking that could be like 40 points a week just from those two, like if they both are playing well. And then it's some more depth at wide receiver and the youth movement, which I kind of need at this point. And I didn't have to burn all my capital. Like I still have 2 first-round picks next year and my first this year if I want to make a move for another asset or another player this season. So I kind of just felt like it was another good win now piece for me. I mean, if we're talking about like big time fantasy players, I have Rodgers, Swift, Cook, Devontae Adams, and Travis Kelce all on my team. Like that's a pretty stacked front like powerful pieces of the lineup, I feel like. So I can find some depth, I think, to throw in my flex and my wide receiver too to carry me through. But I feel like I can count on those guys as good players to help me make the playoffs and get me through. So that's kind of my goal. I feel like it was similar to Brandon, like a win now move. Like I think that I kind of wanted to just go in and see what could happen if I did it. So that's kind of the long-winded answer to your question there. I know I rambled for a while, but that's how it came to be.
Nice, man. Well,
What did
yeah,
what did you think of the trade, guys?
yeah, I thought you did really well. I think Devontae Adams is just such an asset in fantasy. I mean, he's so good. Do you have any concerns about like Rodgers' situation next year? Like, do you think they could get split up? And if so, how much less do you value Adams?
Oh, plenty of concern about that. But I still feel like I don't feel like either of them are gonna like retire after this year. I think Rodgers is gonna go to another situation, and I could still have a year or 2 of them. Granted, he could retire. I mean, he's Aaron Rodgers. He kind of does what he wants, but that would surprise me. I think. But yeah, Devontae, I don't really know what to expect. I don't suspect he's staying in Green Bay, and I don't know. Maybe he'll follow with Rodgers, and maybe they'll stay together. I don't know. Either I'm not super worried about it. I mean, I think Devontae is kind of in a league of his own, so I think he can do well anywhere. He may just not be as good as with Rodgers because they're kind of magic together. But it was. I mean, it was on my mind, but ultimately, like I feel like I got the best player out of the trade, and I think that that's something that you always kind of want to do or shoot for in a trade. And I feel like I did that in this one. So that gives me peace, knowing that I think I got the best guy to give me the best chance at a championship this year. How about you, Brandon? What did you think of this deal?
Initially, I was at Publix when I saw it, and I was like, "There's no way this trade just happened." But like once I got back home and like sat down and like actually looked at it, I think it was pretty good for both sides. There's just that initial shock factor that somebody traded Devontae
Yeah,
that got me.
yeah, I know. It's man, we've seen quite a few blockbusters this year. Like guys have not been shy about trading stars, which seems kind of crazy for it being the first year of like a dynasty startup. But I mean, these have big implications. These deals do, and people are just wheeling and dealing. Like D Hop got traded, Diggs has been traded twice now. I mean, stars just moving around. I didn't expect to see this many trades, honestly. I think like we've done redraft before with the same people mostly, Matt, and I don't feel like there's been this many trades the whole season, and that
Heck
doesn't
no.
have near
Heck
the
no.
implications.
Yeah, I feel like we trade more in Dynasty, which I find I didn't expect that either. I thought it'd be less.
I feel like you
But
get these draft picks in it, and it's just like people are more likely to trade just because they see the picks coming in. I don't know. It's an increased asset you don't have in redraft.
and we have bigger rosters, so I think there's just more pieces.
Yeah.
As far as like sweeteners, like things you can throw in to kind of balance the scales. Like I feel like when you only have 6 or 7 bench guys and then your starters, like you can still make moves, but it's a little bit harder to kind of find like those balancing the scales type pieces. Like for me with Brandon, like Gabe Davis was kind of a needle mover for him because he didn't want to trade Lamb for a 28, almost 29-year-old receiver, because he was thinking long term, like age related. And so I was kind of like, look, I know Gabe Davis isn't Stephon Diggs, but Emmanuel Sanders is 35. Cole Beasley's 33. Diggs is pretty old. Like Gabe Davis is going to have a role on that team whenever one of those guys retires. So like I was like, you're always going to have a stack with Allen, and I think that kind of moved the needle a little bit. So I feel like in Dynasty, there's a little bit more of those bench type guys that are decent enough to kind of balance things out.
Yeah, about another thing to flash to on that trade. So Laviska is thrown in there.
And yeah, I had to throw in Laviska. He had to get a Jag on his team.
Was
he already had
a selling point?
What?
Was Laviska a selling point for you, Brandon, or was that just a sweetener in there?
It was a little bit of both, to be honest. Like, I think he has the potential to really step it up in the next couple of years and become a great receiver. And then at the same time, it's just the emotional attachment to the team.
Yeah.
That really pushed the needle more.
Yeah, I get you. Speaking of, is that T-Law jersey on right there, or who you wearing?
Of course.
Yeah, I like it.
Had to.
Hey, man, crazy things can happen. It's bad this year, but, I mean, quarterbacks can take a crazy leap year 1, year 2. I mean, like, I'll look at Burrow this year. You know, he was good last year, but even after torn ACL, he's looking insane. So keep the faith. And another coach in there, man. Urban's a clown.
Yeah,
he's trash a lot in the group chat. I almost feel sorry for the Jags fans that have to deal with him. I think he's kind of bottom of the barrel. Him and Matt Nagy might be on the chopping block.
We can only hope.
He hasn't been the best. Let's just put it that way.
It's just been it's been such an active day in the chat because we had those 2 big trades, but also people have just been lighting up the trade block. Like just before we started recording this, Jake throws up Robert Woods, Sterling Shepard, and Antonio Brown. James throws up Christian McCaffrey. I mean,
he ain't trading CMC. Oh my gosh,
let's talk about that for a second. Like,
we all know he's just trying to get some attention in the chat. He's gonna get like 20 offers, and he's not gonna accept any of them. But who knows? Maybe he'll prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, James. Trade me Christian McCaffrey.
I wonder if he's. I mean, wow! I'm looking at his stats now. He's put up 0 4 weeks in a row. I think he's still on the IR too.
Yeah, he's still on the IR.
So he's out for like 2 more weeks or just 1 more?
I don't know. Maybe he should trade him with Saquon so like they can just kind of like swap hospital patients. You know. Those guys are always in recovery together. Guys, I shouldn't be talking trash. My team freaking sucks right now, but
sorry.
I mean, he's a stud. I hope the man can get healthy because I like him. He's fun to watch. But it's just we don't get to see him enough.
So I think at this point I wouldn't even want CMC just because of straight injury concerns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough to count on. I mean, when he's there, he's amazing, but I mean, if it's not there, it can cripple you making that big an investment. Let's flash over just to Carter's team and look at it for a second after this trade. So, like, obviously he's losing Devontae, which is a big loss, but he's filling it. So now his receiving core or his just starting lineup, he hit on some great players. He's got Deebo Samuel, who's currently the number 6 wide receiver. DJ Moore, who's currently number 9. Those are his wide receiver 1 and 2. And then Pittman and Johnson in his flex spots. I mean, that's a tough quartet to beat right there. Those are 4 pretty dang good players. And he's also got Deshaun Watson sitting there just wondering where he's going to get traded.
I mean, if Deshaun gets traded to the right team, I mean, there definitely could be some weeks of just kind of getting used to the system and learning the scheme and, you know, just getting back in game form. But, like, come playoff time, he might – if he's, you know, active and not on the exempt list, like Deshaun Watson could be a league-winning type upgrade for Carter that was just kind of sitting there on his bench. So that's definitely worth noting. Huge upgrade over Tannehill when he's healthy or when he's ready to play.
One of my concerns with doing the trade, and I wonder what you all think about this, is because I was thinking like, so if I give up Deontay and Pittman, I'm essentially wagering that Devontae is going to outscored those two on like a week to week basis. And that's a tough thing to give up, right? Because that doesn't seem likely every week. I mean, it may be likely, it may happen some weeks, but maybe not every week. Do you think that was what his thought process was on this trade? Because he could get in two more guys to fill up his roster that might be able to provide more than what Adams could each week?
Based on what Carter sort of indicated and the way he seemed about the deal, I think he was more just interested in the fact that like they're both already pretty good, but they're both also really young. Like I think, and I know that Carter could very well be in win now mode, and so maybe when you're in win now mode, you don't need to think about age quite as much. But I think Carter still was, and that seems kind of counterintuitive since he traded two rookies, but those rookies aren't nearly as proven as the guys he got. So like I think he was just kind of like they both could potentially get to, maybe close to Devontae's level, and they're 24 and 22 or something like that, or 23. And so just kind of like I think sort of that moved the needle for him. Also, I mean, this is just rumors. I don't know if it's going to happen, but right now I'm hearing Pittsburgh could be the front runners for Aaron Rodgers, and if that happens, then Carter gets the stack there. So there's definitely some risk on both ends, and I think the age was kind of what did it for him, if I had to guess.
Well, I mean, I get that too, but
like Ty, you're not in a bad spot though, because I mean, yeah, you have a lot of like older players, but like you also have DeAndre Swift. You have 3 first-round picks in the next 2 years, and like you also got some other nice pieces that aren't super old. So it's not like your team's a retirement home. I mean,
yeah,
Kelsey, Adams, Rogers, like they're fairly old, but like they could still be around for another couple seasons.
I mean, it's a risk, but it was a pretty calculated risk. Like I didn't just burn all my ships chasing like a championship this year and like give away any hope I had of rebuilding. Like I think I still have some assets and pieces in place to replenish my youth, and getting those two rookies went a big way. So yeah, I'm taking a look at Brandon's roster right now. His lineup he's got rolling this week.
What's the Cincinnati Bengals offensive lineup, Sam or Ty? I said Sam because I'm used to talking to Sam about the Bengals. But what's their offensive lineup? That's Brandon's team. That's all you need to know.
I guess just Brandon, what's the biggest concern for your team moving forward now? What do you feel most concerned about with your roster?
Right now,
he said nothing, baby.
probably Travis Etienne. Just because I don't know if Urban will be here next year, and he's the guy who like really wanted him.
Oh.
I don't know if he's just going to get outshined by James Robinson next year, and he just ends up being a backup. So just hoping that doesn't end up happening, because that would definitely suck.
Yeah, because as I'm looking at your team, I think what stands out to me is like that RB2 spot, because currently you're starting the backup on the Chiefs, Williams, and then you also have Herbert, who's looked outstanding, by the way. What a crazy draft pick that was that you hit on that one. Like you're drafting with like some cheat codes or something, man. Like,
I literally only drafted him because he has the same last name as me, and I couldn't get Justin Herbert. So I was like, I'll take this guy with like my last pick, and
awesome.
It played out nicely.
And then you also got you got a bird in the hand here with having Noah Fant and Dawson Knox, like two pretty solid tight end options there. You got depth in all the right places, but I guess like that running back 2 spot is elusive because Devin Singletary hasn't really done it this year. Mark Ingram had a good week 1, and then he just kind of is Mark Ingram. But these receivers, dude, let me just read through some of these. Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins. And that's the starting lineup. Now we'll get to the bench where we have Jacoby Myers, Laviska Shenault, Gabe Davis, like young guys who are kind of peaking early in their career. Like that's pretty lethal, man. I mean, you got to feel good about that.
For sure. I definitely draft night was like, I'm going to try to build a really strong receiving core to make up for the lack of running backs. And it's played out pretty nicely so far. So hopefully it stays like that and Chase doesn't start dropping balls again.
And Will Fuller's on the IR, which who knows if he's ever going to play again. What the heck is going on there? But that's still, he's got a lot of upside, especially if Deshaun somehow ends up in Miami. They had a great connection in Houston. Just real quick, because I noticed when I was looking at your draft earlier, so you go Jamar in the third, T. Higgins in the fourth. Were you concerned at all about like them competing against each other for targets, or was it just like one of them is going to be the guy this year? I'm just going to take both of them.
I was worried they'd compete for targets, but I brought like rankings of like every player that I possibly would draft, and he was the next guy up on my board. So I was like, I'm just going to take the talent and maybe eventually dump him off to somebody for somebody equivalent, but that hasn't worked out yet.
I'll tell you what everybody's regretting is letting Cooper Kupp slide to the late fourth round. That's what everybody's regretting.
That might be the steal. Well, I don't know. Jamar is still probably the steal of the draft in my eyes, but Cooper Kupp is a very, very, very close second.
That's insane that he – and I'll tell you what hurts me more is like the fact that guys like Allen Robinson and Brandon Ayuk went before him. Oh, and both to Lucas, man. Talk about some terrible luck there.
Yeah, dude. Lucas is he's having a tough time with dealing with both of them at the moment. That's why I did him a favor today and got him the number 1 pick. it was an apology. It was an apology gift.
He does have that to sit on, which probably is bringing him joy. But yeah, wow.
Yeah, going into the draft, I definitely wanted Ayuk too, but I'm glad the opportunity never really came because I don't know what to think of him at all at this point.
Yeah, it's so peculiar, man. It's so peculiar.
So who's been the bigger disappointment, Allen Robinson or Ayuk?
I think Ayuk, personally, because Allen Robinson is more so a problem of like poor quarterback play, and Ayuk is like schemed out of the 49ers. Like they're not manufacturing touches for him or anything. Robinson is just like his quarterback's terrible and they're not – the offense is bad. Ayuk is like their offense is doing things and he's just not involved. I think that's more concerning for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would probably say the same thing.
And also with Allen Robinson, like he's on a, this is a contract year. Like he's gonna be a free agent in the offseason. And after what is happening to him this season, I have a hard time believing he's not gonna bounce. So like, yeah. I think when he gets out of there, depending on where he goes, like he can maybe get back to what he was to some extent. And I feel sorry for that guy because he's an elite talent that has never had a quarterback that can actually get him the ball. And he still got the ball even with Mitch Trubisky, but he didn't.
Hold on, you're talking about Brandon right there now. Blake Bortles got him that dang ball.
He needs to come back home. That's what he needs to do.
Striker's gonna come after me after throwing shade at Blake Bortles, but yeah, maybe he'll go back to Jacksonville. Like T-Law will get him the ball, but he's too good to just be underutilized this much. And I'm hoping Allen Robinson leaves because that gives me more Mooney. And hopefully once Matt Nagy's fired, maybe Justin Fields will look remotely competent. But, it's more – he's got to be better. It's not all on Nagy, but it's a lot on Nagy. Nagy freaking sucks. Like, he's horrible.
Yeah, I mean –
there's a young mind in there that can scheme Fields to success. I think it's possible.
The blame's always going to go on Nagy before it goes on Fields this year, especially. Like, Nagy's the whipping post. Like
he's horrible. He put a fifth-string tackle on – I think it was Ndamukong Suh or something like that this week, and obviously Fields got sacked like 27 times. Like, I mean, they didn't double him or anything. Like, it was just bad. They're not covering for him. Their offensive line's putrid. They don't let them do like screens and dump offs and quick slants and things like that to get them in rhythm. Like, they just keep having them throw downfield, and like they just need to like let the guy ease into the game. But they're just throwing him to the wolves, man. Like they gotta get Nagy out of there. He's so bad. But that's off topic. But I mean, I think me and Marcus were talking about it. I think there's like the tiers in this league are starting to form for this year. I think the contenders are you two, James, Jake, and maybe Carter, but he's kind of like on the outside looking in at the moment after losing Devontae. I'd put him as like an honorable mention, number 5. And then like there's a bunch of really solid teams like Mitri, Jordan, like they're all like right there, like pretty close, but they're just missing like maybe one piece. And then you have like me, Marcus, Jeremy, Chris. Like we're all looking toward next season. Like we're kind of accepting what our teams are at this moment. But I think the hierarchy's starting to kind of form.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of mention the same thing. You know, we're working our way through the season. How many weeks do we play in this? When's our playoffs? Do you know?
14, I believe.
Maybe I should ask Matt.
I think it's weeks 15 through 17, isn't it, of the regular season?
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Because this 3-week playoffs now, I'm pretty sure. Because the first
and 2 seeds get buys.
Yeah, top 2 seeds get buys. So there's like the games to find out who that 2v2 matchup or 2-2 matchups are with the bye teams, and so that adds a week to the playoffs because of the bye week.
So essentially, like we're halfway through the season, like pretty much. Like week 8 is kind of the midway point for that, and so been interesting seeing the teams like decide what direction they're going to take this year, who's making a push for it, who's playing for next year, who's kind of just riding it out. You know, there's a lot of stories left to be written, but it's kind of the people are moving around and standings are shifting, so it's an exciting time, and I'm glad that I think this episode. It's fortunate that all that stuff happened today because it was a good time to kind of talk about it and just do the fallout of these big moves in real time. We haven't really had an opportunity to do something like that this year, so it was great to get us together to talk about that.
I think what happened is I think Ty just had to do the Devontae Adams trade like right after me and Brandon's trade broke because he just had to steal our thunder. I think that's what happened. He was like, I can't let these guys get this much attention for very long before I take it.
Well, the Rodgers and Adams stack was nice to have, but really my primary motivation was just so we could make this a great episode tonight, so we'd have something to talk about, man. I knew we were running a little dry. I was like, Matt's gonna do something, I gotta do something too, so we can keep a conversation for 45 minutes. So that's kind of where I was at.
So Brandon, any last thoughts about the weeks to come? You clearly have built a great team for this year, man. I hope things go well for you. Well, kinda. The nice guy in me hopes things go well for you, but the fantasy player kind of needs that pick to not be pick 14. So I need you to lose at some point. But
right now, I just want to try to get one of those buys and boost my chances at this point. That's my main goal right now.
Good goal. Going for the buys. Good goal.
You definitely got a shot at him. Both of you guys do. I feel like I'm not sitting at the cool kids table in this episode, and I feel kind of crappy for it. But you know, I made a couple rough moves. A couple guys haven't panned out. Had a lot of injuries. You know, on to next year.
You never know. Next year, you can play spoiler this year as long as it's not against me.
Yeah, maybe I'll be like the Bengals were a few years ago, knocking the Ravens out of the playoffs in the last week. Maybe I'll be like that guy.
Well, time will tell. But we better wrap it up here, man. We're about out of time.
All right, guys. Well, best of luck to you week 8. Let me know if you have any start a bowl running backs you want to give me for my RB2 slot, or else it's going to have to be P. Ryan. So let me know.
All right, Brandon, thank you for joining us, man. It was
Thanks
great
for having me.
Yeah.
All right, peace out. See
you guys.
See you.